How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you've been here before. Today I want to do a little video on basically how to start as a content creator. And the reason why I want to do this video is basically because I think everyone nowadays should be a content creator. I don't think this. In fact, a lot of kind of mentors I watch, business mentors and stuff, I've heard them say, if you're not creating a personal brand, then I don't know what you're doing, because content is so important to get your message out there. Say you're a chef and you really love what you do. I just think it's so important to put content out there. It's amazing how when you're building an audience or people just seeing what you're doing, even if your audience is not that big, how much you can kind of leverage social media and the content you're making. So the reason why I wanted to make this video was because I know a lot of people who are starting out doing their own thing, whether it's in the kind of, nutritional field or just any field really. And it can seem a bit daunting, you look around and a lot of creators are creating this really amazing stuff and you're like, how do you do that, right? Where do I even start? Because there's so many components to video. There is obviously the video and audio and potential lighting if you really want to kind of go down that road. It does seem like there's a lot of skills involved to kind of putting that together and just kind of getting started. So this video is just going to be really basic on how to just get started, right? And maybe actually you have the kind of knowledge, but this video is just that little push over the edge to say, all right, you have got everything and you can just kind of get started. Because sometimes as well, that's all people need. It's just a reassurance that they are good enough, they have what they need, and just get able to move along. One thing I would say with all this stuff though is there's quite a famous kind of saying in the camera world, and they say like the best camera is the one you have in your hand. And that's really true. To a certain extent, depends what you're going to do. I always believe it's not really about gear, a lot of it's just about the message, and if you use your gear properly, then you can really get a lot more out of it than people do. But at the same time, as I mentioned, it depends what you want to do with it, because, for instance, my camera has great low light capability, so if I'm shooting really late at night, a DJ or something, then it can handle that. But if you're not really looking to do that, then you could probably just get away with using, a much cheaper camera or your phone or something like that. But there is a lot you can get away with without investing in too much equipment. And that's what I'm going to kind of talk about, is how to get your stuff looking great and sounding great with a few tips and tricks without needing to kind of spend too much money in the beginning. Obviously, if you've got the money, you can invest as much as you want, but some of it might not really be that necessary. So when it comes to your camera gear, obviously a lot of people nowadays, they do shoot on their phone. I think that's more of an Instagram thing though. I think a lot of people on YouTube do invest in a camera, just having that long form content. Maybe people don't want to use their phone for such long form content. And I do get it. But nowadays, actually, your phone can do if that's the only thing you have in your pocket. And phones nowadays can be so good that they really can get you to a great level. The only thing about using a phone is obviously, you might not want to be shooting and have your phone recording all the time, especially if you're, doing something like vlogging, taking the camera around with you. You might just want a specific camera to film that one thing. And obviously for the phone, you could have storage issues. If you're shooting long form content like YouTube, and you're having hours and hours of recording, having that all stored on your phone can be an issue. I'm sure if it's short form content, it's not such a big deal. But yeah, with long form content, I think I'd kind of consider buying an external camera. And in the beginning, you can't honestly go that wrong. Honestly, most cameras nowadays are just great. The technology inside cameras has evolved so much. Even if you just got a small point and shoot camera, then it's probably going to do a great job. Obviously, if you want one though that you can have for a bit longer, I look at buying an APS-C camera. You can get in Sony, it's like the A6400 range. But if you want something a bit cheaper as well in the Sony range, look into the ZV range. There are a lot of people raving about them these days. They're kind of like, vlogging cameras. And I feel like they're really set up just to create great audio. They're great cameras just to get started with. They're super lightweight. So I'd really look into getting one of them. They also have interchangeable lenses. And the thing is, well, why I talk about APS-C is APS-C basically is a cropped sensor. So my camera at the moment, the A7 IV, is a full frame sensor. I've got a video on it which I'll link somewhere, but basically a full frame sensor is a lot bigger than a crop sensor, which allows more light in and certain other factors, but it also means a full frame is more expensive. APS-C now though, there's a lot of great cameras at APS-C, and they're literally probably about half the price for the camera and the lenses. So you can look into buying one of them if you really want to invest a bit more money. I think, they could be anywhere from £500 to, £700 or £800. So they're just great to get started with. I'll link some of those cameras in my description so you can check some of them out yourself, read the reviews and look at the pricing and see which one's just really good for you. But from what I've seen, a lot of people are not really too fussed about, viewing that really high quality video. I don't think that's necessarily necessary right in the beginning, and it's not going to make a difference to really the story you're trying to tell. The story is probably more important, so I wouldn't really stress too much about, you know, how high quality your camera looks, especially with all these cameras. If you just put it on auto mode, it should capture things well. If you really want to understand how to make your, you know, picture look a lot better, you can really get into, you know, setting the camera manually and really understanding things like shutter speed, aperture, like frames per second. Really understand those things to understand how your camera works, and really that's all you really need, to be honest, in the beginning. Is just understanding shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. And once you kind of gain control of them, and your frame rate, because that will be linked to your shutter speed, but once you kind of understand those things, you can kind of start making your footage look great. But that's not hugely necessary. And also, if you're shooting on a mobile phone, controlling those things manually can make things a bit more complicated. So in the beginning, I'd say just buy a great camera if that's what you're worried about, and get shooting. One thing that a lot of people will tell you is that audio is a bit more important. And the reason for that is people seem to get a bit more fed up if they can't understand what you're saying very clearly. Whereas with picture, people don't really mind too much if it's that bad. And a lot of people won't even notice the difference of what bad and good is, which is quite strange. And something I've learned as a videographer is people don't actually care that much about high quality stuff. They more just care about the message and obviously audio. When watching a long video, they want to understand that the audio is clear. So what I would try not to do is use audio from the camera. If you were, this would create a few problems in a few different scenarios. Like example one is obviously in the room I'm shooting in right now. There's no carpet and obviously there's a lot of walls, so the sound just bounces around and you get this really like echoey kind of sound. And if I was further away from the camera, you would hear that kind of, you'd hear basically a lot of room noise. You know, that's what you kind of call it, it's like room noise. And it just kind of sounds very echoey and it can be a bit annoying to listen to. I'm probably even getting it at the moment a little bit from this little microphone here, but because it's so close to my body, it's gonna pick up me more than the room. What you can do instead of using the camera audio is actually buy a set of wireless mics. And actually this is probably the first thing I'd buy before buying maybe a great camera. I mean, like I said, depends on what you're going to be doing. But even if you're making short form content, microphone and audio is really important. And a lot of the microphones you're going to get that are these kind of like lav mics or wireless mics can plug into your phone. So for instance, right here I have the DJI ones, and this is what I'm recording on at the moment. These are quite expensive though. They come in like maybe £300, and it's just a little wireless mic that looks like that. And these are great, obviously you can just clip them anywhere, but as I mentioned, and I have the receiver which is on my camera at the moment, and the receiver can plug into the bottom of, you know, like an iPhone. I've got it here, the little, I've got it here, this just plugs into the bottom of your iPhone. So you can plug these straight into the bottom of your phone and basically pick up audio from anywhere, you know. And as I mentioned, right now I'm in a room and it picks up the room. But if you were outside on the street and you moved a bit away from the camera, you'd have things like wind noise, which can be an issue, and your camera tends to pick that up quite a lot. And also, as you're moving away from the camera, you'll hear that distance, so it'll get quieter and stuff. Whereas obviously with a wireless microphone, it's just always on you. You can move away from the camera, you can even go across the street. It's gonna sound good, right? It's always gonna stay the same. But obviously that would be a bit of an investment. Now, one thing I would say though with wireless microphones is you can get cheaper ones. I remember a few years back when I wasn't making as much money, I did buy a pack of wireless microphones. I can't remember the brand now, I don't have them anymore, but obviously the audio quality wasn't as good. And sometimes the signal would cut from going from the receiver to the microphone, so it would cut off. And obviously this is a massive no-no. You don't want your audio being cut, you know, or like even in parts, like, you know, like getting that kind of staggering, stuttering kind of sound from the microphone. You really don't want this. So I would really be careful. And the crazy thing was I read all the reviews on Amazon and no one really mentioned this. So you do have to be very careful on the microphones you buy, because you know, you don't want to invest like 100 quid and then the microphone starts cutting off. You're better off to just invest like another 100 quid, maybe get like the Rode wireless mics or something like that, and then you don't have that issue, and you know, you have them for a long time. You're always going to need great microphones if you're taking this seriously. So obviously microphone is actually one of the first things I would buy if I was going to start this journey of being a content creator, just because it's so important to have really good audio. As I mentioned, even if you're doing short form content like, you know, TikTok or Instagram Reels, having a great microphone and shooting on your mobile, that's a great setup, you know, that's a great setup. And you probably won't need to buy a camera, which is obviously going to cost way more. You know, a camera, like, as I mentioned, you're, you know, going to start out with at least 400 or 500 quid. One little trick you can pull off though, is you have one of these, which is like a little lav mic. If you have just bought a great camera, what you can do is actually buy one of these. Literally, they're so cheap. I think you can get these for like 20 quid or something. It's just a little microphone on a wire. And basically what you can do is plug the end of this inside your phone and have it on voice recorder. And basically now while you have your camera, you can have this going straight into your phone and be recording audio straight to your phone. And audio doesn't take much space, so you can literally probably be recording for hours and hours, and you'll have much better quality than if you were probably just recording straight to the camera, especially if it's for long form content like YouTube. If it's for short form content, it's probably not as much of a big deal. Another thing you can also do with these is some of them you can buy and they have an insanely long wire. This is not like super long, but it's kind of long. But if you buy some, I've seen some like just insanely long ones. I don't really know why they sell them so long. But if you do buy one so long, you can literally, if you're just talking like at the moment, the distance I am from my computer, you can trail this underneath your top and into the side of the camera, and you can record, you know, basically audio straight to the camera. So that's another great trick as well. I have seen people do that before. So there is options with audio. Another thing I've also seen people do is obviously, as I mentioned, with voice recorder, I've seen people hold their phone up as a microphone and record straight to the voice recorder on their mobile phone. So then they have the audio inside their mobile phone and, you know, they can move that around. And also, you know, as I mentioned, like the audience doesn't really care that much if you were like recording an audio like this. I've seen people do it on like, you know, viral videos, and they go up and they interview someone and they hold the microphone, you know, the phone to their face while they just talk into it. So, you know, I don't think there's any rules to this stuff. People aren't really gonna care that much if your content's good, what you're recording into and how you're recording it. I think people just care about, you know, it being entertaining and good. But yeah, whatever you do with your audio, make sure it is pretty good, because I do think it's an important part of recording and making your audio sound nice and crisp. And don't worry if you've recorded your audio onto something separate than the camera and then you've got your audio somewhere else, because you can actually sync them up in post or, you know, in your editing software really easily. So don't worry, you're not going to be sitting there manually trying to sync everything up. Another thing that I would really recommend buying is a tripod. Tripods vary so much. You can buy tripods literally that are, you know, £20, and you can buy tripods that are £2,000. I've got two tripods. I've got a Manfrotto tripod that I'm recording at the moment. I've got this Manbily tripod. I think both of them range about 65 to 80 pounds, somewhere around there. And I think you can't go wrong with that. You know, there is tripods you can get for about £20, and I feel like sometimes they can be a bit plasticky and stuff like that. If you're recording on your phone, it's not such a big deal. First of all, because phones are pretty durable. If the tripod just tips, then you're fine. And also phones are not that heavy, whereas for instance, the camera I've got on there at the moment is pretty heavy camera. If you just put it on a flimsy plastic tripod, there's a chance it might fall. So I would say, you know, about 50 quid is probably a good price for a tripod. But yeah, you will need one. I think it makes shots a lot better, a lot easier to shoot yourself. Unless you've got a great friend who's around and always wants to shoot you. But also the problem is with having handheld shots is obviously that movement. You know, with a tripod, it's going to be so steady, and it can make your footage look a bit more cinematic. If you look at like film shots, a lot of them are quite static, you know. You don't want too much movement in your shot, I think, a lot of the times. So having a tripod is great. Just a great way to set your camera up and just talk to camera and not need to worry about anything. So as I mentioned, I'm gonna have the two tripods that I'm shooting on now in my description. They might be a bit pricey for you if you're just starting out. I understand that. Who wants to spend money on a tripod? It's like one of those boring things you could buy, but it is a necessity. One thing you might need though if you're shooting on your phone is this little thing here. It basically just opens up and you can slot your phone inside. And as you see, it goes into the back of the tripod. This one actually came with the Manbily tripod. So if you want to buy a tripod, it comes with this phone holder, which is great, because actually some tripods don't come with this. Normally you'll find the more expensive ones don't come with stuff like this, because I don't know why. It's just like, you know, it's like one of those things, right, where you spend more money but you get less things. It's like a camera as well, right? Some of the best cameras you buy, they don't have a lens come with it. You buy a cheaper camera, it comes with a lens. So this is a must if you're going to be shooting on your phone, because you won't be able to screw your phone onto the tripod without it. And now for editing, which for a lot of people can seem like the most daunting part. And I understand that, you know, you're basically learning to use a whole piece of software. If you're doing short form content and you just want to edit on your phone, you can use something called CapCut or VN editor. From what I've kind of seen, they're the best ones around. I don't really edit too much on my phone. I just edit on the computer. I find it a lot easier, and that's what I'm used to. But definitely CapCut and VN. I have used VN a couple of times and it is really good. So I'd really look into them, CapCut and VN, if you're going to do short form content on your phone. You can literally edit all on your phone, export it on your phone and upload it straight to social media. I wouldn't shoot and edit inside the apps. I know a lot of people do. They use TikTok and stuff to edit, but I don't know. I just think that like shooting outside, you probably have a lot more control over what you do. And also, that also goes for shooting inside the apps. Shooting inside the apps will probably compress your content a lot more. I know that on my phone, for instance, I know that if I shoot inside Instagram, it doesn't allow me to use the other two lenses on my phone. It just uses one. So that kind of already like stunts your, creativity, because one of those lenses is super wide, which can be really nice if you're shooting spaces. The other lens is a bit more zoomed in, like I think around a 50mm. So the fact that Instagram doesn't allow you to use them is kind of a shame. So yeah, I would shoot outside the app and I'd edit outside the app and then just upload them in afterwards. But if you're gonna go down the route of editing on your computer, the three kind of softwares you can use are Final Cut, DaVinci and Premiere Pro. I haven't used Final Cut for years. I got into Premiere Pro for a long time and I really love that piece of software, but I've now switched over to DaVinci. I think Final Cut costs around £200, pounds or dollars. I'm not sure on that. And obviously you can only use it if you're a Mac user, so it's not compatible with Windows. Premiere Pro is compatible with both and it runs on a subscription basis. I think in the end, well, not in the end, I still pay for it. I think I pay about £25 a month for subscription. This is great because you don't have to cough up that, one-time fee like with Final Cut and DaVinci. DaVinci is about £300. I just paid for it and bought it, but it's a great piece of software. But obviously if you don't have that £300, with Premiere you're just paying that little monthly subscription. You might not necessarily notice it coming out of your account. And with it you also have things like Photoshop, Lightroom, all the whole Creative Cloud suite. And they are incredible, right? Adobe has incredible software. So, by paying that, you can't really go wrong. With DaVinci, the £300 is for the pro version. They do have a free version and it is absolutely amazing. If you're just starting out right now, I would probably just go for DaVinci. And the reason for that is you can learn to use a pro editing software for free right now. I would try and stay away from things like iMovie and other kind of basic software, because if you start on DaVinci now, you're going to learn how to use DaVinci really well. And in good time, you will have a real grasp on a good piece of editing software. Whereas if you start with iMovie, then if you want to invest in a better program, you're going to have to relearn that program again. So just downloading DaVinci for free now, you can literally just get started on a really great program. There is definitely a lot of great features in the paid version and I would recommend buying it. But I can understand in the beginning if you don't want to invest in a piece of software. To me though, it would be a kind of hard choice between DaVinci and the Adobe Cloud, only because like I said, the Adobe Cloud can be quite cheap and you get a lot of things with it. Whereas with DaVinci, you get one piece of software. The only thing I would say though is with DaVinci, although with Premiere, you have like Premiere and After Effects, with DaVinci, it has Fusion, which is built in. So you kind of are getting, a few programs inside DaVinci as well, and also its color grading capabilities as you progress, and you might want to learn how to color grade and get better. DaVinci has like much better color grading capabilities as well. So it's a tough choice between the two, but I would say just because DaVinci is free, you can't really go wrong, right? You just download it and start using it straight away. It's amazing. Another thing is music. Obviously, if you want to start a YouTube channel and want to use music inside your videos, then you're going to have to find royalty-free music. You can go searching around the internet. I know there is some royalty-free tunes on YouTube that you can kind of rip, or if you don't mind the subscription, you can pay for something like Epidemic Sound, and they actually have loads of royalty-free music there. So if you put that on your YouTube channel, it won't get flagged up. It's a great little shortcut. I also use a lot of the sound effects, they have inbuilt sound effects. I use a lot of the sound effects for my Instagram Reels as well. So that's a great way just to be able to find all that kind of little sound effects as well. One last thing I want to say is that if you're shooting in a kind of studio little setup, you can also buy lighting. My lights are not actually that expensive. They're just newer lights. There's a set of 3. I think they come to maybe like 300 quid or so. But you don't even need that actually. Right now I'm just using one light. You can use more if you wanted to. And there's a lot of lighting techniques to make yourself stand out. It really depends on where you are. I've got this great window up here. That's giving me a lot of natural light as well. So using natural light is also a great way, but I wouldn't worry too much about lighting in the beginning if you're really starting out on a budget. Maybe just buy 1 or 2 lights if you can. I think you can get them so cheap on Amazon, just buying lights, so just buy 1 or 2 maybe, light up one side of your face, or if you buy a ring light, you can light up from the front. Although be careful with that because lighting can make your image look a bit flat. So I would always actually light it, kind of a 45-degree angle one side of your face, and actually does really help your image quite a lot. So really that's a lot that you need to know to get started. Obviously that is just scratching the surface. Then you have things like, as I mentioned, you can learn a lot more about camera techniques. You obviously need to learn a lot more about editing. But if you follow my channel, then there's a lot of techniques there that hopefully you can go through, and there's so much information out there online. You just got to take things step by step. But learning editing is probably going to be the most kind of trickiest thing in some ways, but I wouldn't let that scare you. It's actually quite straightforward, especially once you get started. If you want to know more about this, I'm going to be launching a course soon that's all about this, how to get started, and it's going to have everything in it from, you know, just way more information about the camera, way more information about your audio, way more information about lighting, how to put everything together, editing, everything. But it's not out yet. But if you look down in the description, you'll see a link there. You can join my mailing list, and I'll send an email out once the course is up and running. So just follow that link. Also, feel free to leave any comments. I'll really try and answer as many as possible. I know, as I mentioned, this can be quite a daunting journey, so I'm here to help you in any way I can. So just feel free to reach out if you really want to know anything, and I'll really try and answer them. So thanks a lot. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.